I'm Allie. I came out after 20 years of marriage and I have 3 kids.
I'm Melissa, and I have 2 kids, and I came out at 37 after an 11-year marriage.
This podcast is about coming out later and the struggles and victories that come with it.
When coming out feels like the end of the world, but it's really just the beginning.
This is the Lesbian Chronicles. Welcome to the Lesbian Chronicles. I'm flying solo today because Melissa is jet setting out to the West Coast and is traveling all over. And with the time difference, it was super hard to connect in person or via Zoom because she's having so much fun. So I'm flying alone today. And basically what we wanted to do was what we planned on talking about was the moment you realized you were gay. And of course, like it's a process, it's a long process that takes time to kind of uncover truths about yourself. But as we've come through this journey, most people can look back and say, there was like a defining moment. It may not have been like, oh, I'm for sure gay now. But there are moments or, maybe one moment where you say, wow, yes, it's true about me. I'm gay. And so we were curious around what people would say those moments were for them. Was it meeting somebody, or was there a catalyst that there was a moment with that person? For me, I feel like I had always thought I was gay. Even as a child, I thought I had these feelings. I remember as early as even third grade, I would pretend to like the boys like my friends did, but I wasn't really feeling it. I would have these girl crushes, pretty intense girl crushes. And so I always kind of knew, but it wasn't something that was important enough in my life. Growing up Catholic and in a family that was pretty conservative, it just wasn't something that I would have ever explored or that I was ever shown. So I just didn't do it. I just went about my life. I did exactly what everyone expected. I married a kick-ass guy, dated boys all the way through, and just followed the path of having babies and, having a career. I did all those things. And I think too, I always wanted to be a mom, and I was never shown that you can be a mom and be gay. To me, that was so foreign that I just didn't even consider that. But I would say that the moment that I no longer could avoid the fact that I absolutely was gay was the minute I met my catalyst. We locked eyes, and I knew right then and there, and I was in a happy marriage with no intention of ever exploring that. I knew right then and there when I looked at her that I was gay and that she was going to be a dangerous proposition for me, because I could tell she was interested in me, and I could tell that it was like hitting all my dopamine receptors. I mean, I was on fire for this woman, and it was killing me that the excitement of it all was too much for me to put away. And so I think that for me was the moment that I thought, holy shit, I cannot hide from this anymore. I'm gay, and I can't, I'm getting reckless. I wanted to be with her so badly. Now, there was also a moment after my third baby. He was starting to get a little bigger. He was going to start, I think, preschool or something. And I realized that I was going to be done basically with having a baby home all the time. And I ended up getting pregnant again. And I miscarried early on. It wasn't terribly upsetting that it was a miscarriage, but it was more it was upsetting, but it was almost more upsetting that it was over for me. I felt to have another baby that I could kind of hide behind. I knew in that moment that as my ex-husband was comforting me, that it felt scary that I'm now alone. My babies are getting bigger, and the voice of my gayness is getting louder. And now I can't hide behind these babies anymore. My kids, they were still little. And of course I was still very active in their lives. I was staying home with them. But it was just something about having a baby at home kept me rooted in this family. And when I felt like that was slipping away, and then met the catalyst, probably, a couple years later, my little one was bigger by then. And that to me was the defining moment of, oh shit, this cannot be ignored anymore. And so for me, I always remember that moment. And then that I knew it then, but then that went on, that relationship went on, until eventually I did separate from my husband. And he always knew, like I was always talking to him about what was going on. But there was a moment in time where she and I were out, and we were still friendly, flirting friends. I mean, it was like there was nothing happening yet that was bad until I was separated. But I remember her saying to me super confidently, like, I'm going to kiss you right now and everything's going to change. You're not going to be able to just go back to your life. And it just felt so powerful when she said that. And I feel like that was true in some ways. It was like, once I had that experience, I couldn't just go back to my life, business as usual. It was like I'd seen something that I couldn't unsee, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. In any event, so we put that question out because we were really curious what other people's defining moments were. And so what I want to do is just read some of these to y'all because I think they're really, really good. Okay, so this one, and the question we actually posted was, let's see, we basically said there's typically a defining moment in coming out, the moment you truly know you're gay. What was yours? And so here are some of the answers we got. One is she's been out 7 years, married to the love of her life for 5 years, moved to the burbs, had another baby together, 4 total now. They pulled the kids out of school and they're homeschooling, growing all the foods and flowers in the garden, happier than either of us could have ever dreamed up. My wife is currently in the process of adopting my other 2 kids from the previous marriage. It's magical. Hard, real, raw, and utterly magical. Don't settle for anything less, people, is what she said. I love that. So it sounds like she knew right after her divorce. She's been out for 7 years, but got married 2 years, out for 7. So she was out 2 years and then got married and now has been married for 5 years. So that's amazing. I love that story. Okay. Then we've got the next one is, so my husband knows that I love sports. When a woman-owned sports bar that plays only women's sports opened up in our city, shout out to the Sports Bra in Portland, Oregon, he knew before I did and took me there for one of our date nights. I had previously come out as bisexual, but had privately been considering for a few weeks the fact that I might be full-on gay, lesbian. I might be a full-on lesbian. I looked the place up online before we went, and it seemed pretty queer, but not directly a lesbian bar. On the way, I was feeling all the things. I was euphoric because I love going out and I love women's sports, and he knows me so well. I was also feeling pretty gay. When we parked, I was super nervous to go in, and he actually asked if it was because I'm a lesbian and not bisexual. Like he also knew. I said, I think so. We went in and had a wonderful time, and as I was eating dinner, looking around at all the lesbians, it clicked, and I knew for sure. We're navigating the complexities of a mixed orientation marriage. And right now, we're taking it one day at a time and seeing a good therapist. I love that they're going to therapy, but also so many questions for this person, because I'm so curious about, first of all, your husband sounds awesome. First and foremost, he sounds like a kick-ass guy. But second, when he had the feelings like he asked you the question, he was likely scared of the answer. And the answer you gave him was the scary answer, so to speak. I mean, I'm sure he was hoping for you to feel bisexual, because then, he would be in the realm of possibility. So I think kudos to him for asking the hard question and then still going and having a wonderful time and being open to the possibility that the marriage can change and still be an incredible relationship in your life. It doesn't mean that it's over. It's like, I think that's so scary for people, is to give up this safe husband or this sweet person in your life, or maybe the love, your love, you've been married a long time, you have children together. There's a lot that happens in a marriage. And so I think sometimes, like, if you continue to make that relationship a priority as you're going through it, you end up in such a better situation when it's over. So anyway, and maybe it's never over. Maybe you choose to stay and that's your path. You're going to stay in this marriage and have, like you said, a mixed orientation marriage, or maybe you have some openness, or maybe you say it's okay that I'm gay. Like I love this person so much that trumps it in some way. There's so many possibilities out there. I always am left with the question of, like, men are attracted to women even when they're in a marriage. Women are attracted to women sometimes in a marriage. It doesn't mean that the marriage has to go away. It can look a lot of different ways. So I love that. And thank you. Okay, the next one. One would think it would be the various times I kissed a woman, or all the fantasies that would play out in my mind, or the general drive for emotional intimacy with women. But the last final puzzle piece, the key turning the lock moment, was when I heard the term compulsory heterosexuality. Ironically, it was Mother's Day weekend of last year. So I think, wow, this is like fresh. But yeah, like that compulsory heterosexuality where people just assume you're straight. It's kind of like I said when I was growing up. It was just like, of course, you marry the boy. Of course, you get the house, you have the children, you get the dog, like you do these things. It's like so compulsory. There's no option. I never saw gay people. I never was told that women can marry women and adopt a baby or have a surrogate or have the baby with in vitro. Like, to me, it was like a family I was taught was a man and a woman. This is the way it looks. And the people that choose something else are weirdos, really. Like, it was like deviant in some way. So it's so true. Like, you just have this assumed, even now in my life, it's like people will ask me if I have like a workman come to our house. They'll be like, is your husband here? Can I talk to your husband? Or, there's always some assumption that there's a man involved in the situation somewhere. And I think it's powerful. And so when you're growing up with that and day in, day out, that's your life. Of course, 30 years later, 20 years later, 40 years later, you are going to look a certain way because these expectations have been set up. So anyway, I like that one. Thank you so much for sending. And the next one, let me remind everyone the question. There's typically a defining moment in coming out, the moment you truly know you're gay. What was yours? Okay. This person said that first kiss with a woman who was my catalyst relationship. So I relate to that too. Mine was when I met my catalyst, but as I said, once we had been together a little bit, she said, I am going to kiss you and everything is about to change. And she was right. And in good ways and in bad ways in that relationship. Specifically, it's like, that was such a kind of, I hate to ever say like toxic time for me, but it really was like, she wasn't so healthy for me. So it was like this person who's kind of taking that kiss and yet not necessarily there to pick up the pieces when I'm emotionally wrecked in a good way and a bad way. It's like, it was such a hard night for me, really. It was like, I loved it on the one hand, but I also felt this sense of like, my marriage will end. And that marriage was 19 years long. So it was hard. And I think that, I don't know, it definitely complicated things a bit. Okay. The next one. Well, I am still very much in the closet. I knew I was gay from the time I was 14. That's like me. I'm now 32. While I was a teenager, I would close my eyes to think about who would I choose to rest my head upon their chest. Oh my God, that's so sweet. The answer is always the same, a woman. I hope my dream comes true someday. I love that. Okay, so this person has known they were gay like I did. It wasn't like a situation where sexual fluidity and things changed. She's known she was gay. She's 32. and she's always thought about it. And I wonder why, like, if I would love to ask, if you were here, what is holding you back? Are you scared of your family? Are you scared of your religion? What are the things holding you back? And I know we talk about a lot of times, like, identifying the monster. For me, the monster was losing my person who I was married to for so long, the father of my children. That fear, that monster was so terrifying to me. And telling my parents was also extremely terrifying to me. So I think, like, those were my monsters, but the more I like talked about them and verbalized it to my ex-husband, the easier it got in many ways. Like, there was a lot of back and forth with us during our pre-separation and separation, where I was like able to talk to him and like go through what I was feeling. So I'm curious around this woman. What are the monsters? Have you identified what they are? Have you thought about ways that you could, every day move the chains a little bit forward to try to get to the other side? And again, it doesn't mean that you're coming out to all these scary people. Maybe it just means starting to have a friendship with someone that's gay, or joining a club with gay people in it, or starting to put yourself in that community where you can explore it safely. We had the therapy group. I think there's probably some online groups too. I know ours has an online portion, but I think that's a good way. If you all hear my dogs, it's because they're roughhousing. Okay, the next one. When I said it out loud to another person for the first time, I haven't even really said it out loud to myself yet. And it almost surprised me when the words came out of my mouth. But after I said it, I felt an immediate sense of relief and feeling of, yes, this feels 100% right, finally. I relate to that too. When I was like in the early days of separation, and actually this was pre-separation, but I had met my catalyst. I ended up on a long trip to Boston with my best friend and our kids, and we were going to be there for a long period of time, like months. And so I was coming back and forth, but she was my best friend, and so I talked to her about everything. And I remember the kids were swimming in the indoor pool at a hotel in downtown Boston. I will never forget it. And the kids were swimming in the pool. So we were sitting on the side, just chatting. And I just told her like about what had happened. I met this woman. I'm way into her. I'm like pretty sure I'm gay. And, thinking like, can I just be married and be gay, or like, what the hell? And she was such an awesome sounding board for me, because I remember like it gave me the space to process. And then what we ended up doing, because she was kind of going through something too, is we would like read books, self-help kind of books together. Like she would read in her hotel room, I would read in mine. And then the next day we'd be together all day and we would like talk about what we were learning. And then we also did these meditation apps, and we would also try to like get something from that. Like it just became this like very healing trip for me. So I do remember like when I told her, it did feel more real, but I already think I knew in my catalyst situation when I met her. But yeah, verbalizing it felt really, that was like another chink in the armor of like, oh my God. Now we have, long story short, married to a man with 2 kids, moved into a new neighborhood and married to the man. But a woman in the neighborhood was so kind, and I always felt drawn to her. Her husband was out of town, so I went to have dinner and some wine with her after the kids went to bed one night. She started getting close and putting her hands on me, and that was the moment I knew there was no question. I had not come out at that point to anyone. She just seemed to know. Wow, God, this woman. So many questions, like, did it turn into something? Did you end up having to tell your husband? But I know those feelings, they're so powerful, even for someone like me, I'm regimented, I'm controlled about everything. Like it's one of my worst qualities is how I have to like know what's happening. I don't like surprises. I want to have a plan. And for me, the impulse was so powerful. So I can imagine like being at this woman's house, you're having dinner and wine, must have been intoxicating, no pun intended. Okay. This woman said, when I finally met her, it was the most pivotal, life-changing moment, and I knew I would never be the same. Oh, that's really sweet. I wonder if they're still together. I think we might have one more time for one more. And this person said that they knew when they had their first real official date with another lesbian. And I think that we hear that a ton where people will literally say like they got on the dating apps and they're nervous, like they feel that the nerves of like a new date, but they feel a sense of like ease with somebody that's just like this feeling of, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like for me, I had butterflies in a way that I never had with men. It would be like I felt all these feelings of just nervousness and like, did I say the right thing? And all those kind of feelings, but they were like excited nervousness, almost like, you're going on a roller coaster and you're excited but scared. But I did feel like an ease of this feels so good. I can't wait to do it again. So this was a great episode. We appreciate so much that you guys DM'd us, and Melissa will definitely be back next week. We also are going to be introducing a new segment with Dr. Jamie that we're excited about. So thank you so much for listening, and we love you guys. Good luck in your journey. And if you have anything you want us to talk about, tell us and we'll do an episode on it. Have a good one.
Want to support the Lesbian Chronicles podcast? Rate us and write a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
We love listener feedback. If you'd like to share your story, email us at melissaandallie@gmail.com. That's Melissa, MELISA, and Allie, ALLI, @gmail.com. Or follow us on Instagram at Lesbian Chronicles.